I'm going to share with you a little bit of an insight, an insider's look, if you will, about the reverse shoulder replacement. I've done over 7,000 shoulder replacements and one of the most experienced reverse shoulder replacement surgeons in the world, actually. And the reality of it is most patients come to a shoulder replacement for two problems. One is pain, the other is function. And those are always the variables that I'm dealing with and helping a patient navigate as they try to deal with their shoulder and improve ultimately their quality of life. I joke around and say shoulder surgeons don't save lives. My dad was a GI doc and a gastrointestinal belly doc, and he would save lives. But we don't save lives. We save quality of life. And that's what I'm focused on for most of my patients. How do they restore their quality of life, whether they're an athlete or whether they're just trying to live life as they age with a better quality? It's really about quality of life and getting them back. So one of the most common questions I get from people is, what's the difference between a reverse shoulder replacement and a regular shoulder replacement? And actually, I really hate the name reverse shoulder replacement because it doesn't communicate anything to the patient about what it is we're doing this procedure for, why it is we're doing it. And it almost makes it sound like the reverse part is the most important part of the story. In reality, it isn't from a patient standpoint. But to answer the question, let's start with a basic thing. Let's say that this is your arm bone. This is this bone here. Okay, here it is. And normally in a shoulder, there's a ball, because the shoulder, like your hip, is a ball and socket joint. There's a ball on top of the arm bone. All a reverse does is takes this ball and makes it a socket. Okay. And this is the shoulder blade or the wing bone, as they call it. Okay. And it puts normally the socket of the shoulders here, it puts this ball on the socket side. So the normal arm has a ball here, it makes it a socket. The normal socket here has a socket, it makes it a ball. And therefore it's reversed. It reverses the ball and socket joint. But that gives you very little insight into why it is we do a reverse replacement. It turns out, and this is very important, okay? It turns out that the answer is in the history. The reverse shoulder replacement was developed by a Frenchman by the name of Paul Grammont in 1978. Okay. And initially, he was trying to solve the problem of a rotator cuff tear in patients with arthritis, meaning, what do you do with people who have a tear of the muscles that rotate the arm in space? And together, they're actually four rotator cuff muscles, and they form a cuff. Like this forms a cuff around my wrist. They kind of form a cuff around the top of the arm bone, around the ball. And when those muscles tear, sometimes you can repair them. That's called a rotator cuff repair, okay? But sometimes the muscle tears are so severe and the muscles of such a poor quality that you really can't repair them. These patients are often left with very difficult functional loss like this. And because a regular shoulder replacement requires an intact set of muscles or rotator cuff, there was a problem. What did we do with these patients? Initially, they did a partial shoulder replacement, and it was called limited goal surgery. Okay. And that was a very poor outcome for the patients in that it gave them pain relief. And remember, everything in my world deals with pain and function. Well, this gave them pain relief, but no functional improvement. Okay. Paul Grammont in 1978 came up with this idea of how to make essentially this big muscle, the biggest muscle in your shoulder called the deltoid, essentially the replacement of functionally the rotator cuff. Okay. So it doesn't literally replace the rotator cuff. It functionally replaces the rotator cuff. And it's important to know you don't touch the deltoid in a reverse replacement. The surgery itself, you don't touch it. By inserting these implants, okay, the biomechanics, it's almost like magic, of what happens to the deltoid muscle is that it becomes the functional replacement of the rotator cuff. Okay, that was the reason why he did this. And it was actually a genius insight into how to improve people's lives and deal with the issue of function in patients who have rotator cuff tear. Now, that was then, this is now. What's the difference between 1978 and this is another thing that's very interesting. Patients often, and people don't often think of implants because there's really 5 or 6 big manufacturers that think of them like car dealerships or cars manufacturers, Ford and GMC and Chevy, etc. There are really 5 manufacturers for shoulder replacements, okay? And each of them have models. You could have the Pinto, no harm, no insult meant to the Pinto owners, but Pinto, or you can have the Rolls Royce, okay? And same thing occurs, totally different discussion. We'll have that later in one of my other videos, but the same thing occurs with implants. You can have the early model implants, the old model, and the new model implants with the airbags and this and that and the other, all the safety features that are not present in the older models. Similarly, this is what's happened with shoulder replacements. In 1978, that innovation of reversing the ball and socket was extremely innovative, okay, and really solved a problem for a group of patients that were difficult to otherwise deal with. Now, however, and I should also say, let me add this, that the problem with that solution that Paul Grammont came up with was that it had a fatal flaw. The fatal flaw was the reversing the ball and socket, because of specific features in that design, made the implant last basically 10 years. Half of the patients would fail, meaning they'd wear out in 10 years. So people said, oh, only do that replacement, the reverse, in patients who are 70 years or older. Why? Because the average lifespan was 80. So the rationale was 10-year implant. I often get patients today who come in my office and say things like, hey, I heard this only lasts 10 years. That's totally false, okay? And the new implants are very, very different than the original ones that Paul Grammont designed. And if you're a patient looking at Google AI or ChatGPT or whatever the different platforms are, the preponderance, the majority of information out there, of course, from 1978 to 2010-ish, really was about these old implants. So much more of that information is out there. And therefore, yes, it was a 10-year implant back then. So patients will often come to me and say, hey, this is only 10 years. I'll tell them, no, there's a survivorship analysis. That's a fancy word for saying when you look at the current models and all the significant changes that have occurred in those, just like cars, 1978 car versus a 2025, even at every model level is radically different from each other. Similarly in shoulders, okay? So today's survivorship analysis show that it's a 20 to 25 year implant. So it's a very, very different implant. And there are other things we'll talk about as we go through this discussion, but it's a very interesting space now with shoulder replacements. Now these implants last 25 years or a quarter of a century, okay? Another common question I get is, when do you do a reverse replacement? And initially, again, going to the historical perspective, initially it was for patients with big rotator cuff tears, as I explained. Today, though, it's what we've realized, it's far more diverse or versatile to do the reverse replacement for arthritis. And the reason is over the last 20 years, we've come to appreciate, those of us who geek out on this shoulder stuff, have come to appreciate that 60% or more of all arthritic shoulders have deformities of the socket. What does that mean? It means that as the socket wears out, it deforms the shape of the socket. Turns out that certain types of deformities, which are very common in arthritic shoulders, actually hurt the ability of a normal shoulder replacement to function well and last long, okay? And it turns out that the reverse, with the new modifications that have come in the last 10 or 15 years, is able to handle that problem better than a regular conventional shoulder replacement otherwise would. So now reverse replacements are done for large rotator cuff tears, for all sorts of arthritis with bone deformities, which is probably more than 60% of all arthritic patients. And it becomes now a very, very comparable and in my opinion, better implant. If I were to have a shoulder replacement today, and this is coming from somebody who used to do 80% regular shoulder replacements, only 20% reverses, or way back early when it was first released in 2004 and 5 in the United States, I would do about 80% regular replacements and 20% reverse, because the reasons to do it were very narrow, as we talked about before with the early designs. Now, I wouldn't let somebody put a regular shoulder replacement in my shoulder. I would do a reverse. It recovers more quickly. It has less complication rate. I mean, the surgery in my hands for the average patient takes about 20 minutes. It's an outpatient surgery. Patients are in a sling for only 2 days. They can come out. I let them come out right away. I found that they do better when you move them early, okay? And if poor patients, you have this Google search and it says 6 weeks in a sling, 4 weeks in a sling, 3 weeks in a sling. It's everywhere in terms of the internet. But in my world, and again, I do over 500 of these surgeries a year, I'm one of the highest volume surgeons in the United States and frankly in the world, for shoulder replacements. And I have found that it works much better, okay, if you let the patients out of the sling almost immediately, within 2 days, let them use their arms to do their activities of daily living. So I let my patients eat, drink, dress, shower, and shave right out of the gate the first week. I let them drive in a week. And by 6 weeks, I expect most of them to move their arms fairly well and know that they're a lot better. By 14 weeks, which is 3.5 months, I release them from my care, the vast majority of them. I give them a workout program online on my website that I call the Fabulous Six. It's a workout program with weights that has curls, triceps extensions, rows, pull downs, dumbbell bench press, and shrugs. So they can start hitting the gym around 4 months. And they do that for 6 or 8 weeks. After that, I let them do what they want. So it's a really fast recovery compared to a conventional shoulder replacement. And, has been shown to have fewer complications, primarily because the rotator cuff is not as big a deal in a reverse replacement, meaning you don't have to baby it. Whereas in a regular replacement, you have to do a rotator cuff repair as part of that, which is always a concern of failure, a point of failure, muscle tearing.